I so love that you asked this question because I was in a MOPS group when my little ones were, well, starting from my first one and all the way through raising all 4 of my children. And by the time the second one came along, I was about losing my mind, being up with 2 babies. And my MOPS leader told the whole group, because we were kind of all in the trenches together, and this wonderful woman had already raised 5 children and done so successfully, so I was going to listen because she has street cred, right? So, so she told me that it's so important to get your children well rested so that you can get well, so that I myself could get well rested. And then once I get to that place, my reward could be that I could pick 4 things as a stay-at-home mom. And again, this is, you know, I started having kids back to back at home a lot, especially around nap schedules. She said, pick 4 things that you want to specialize in, that you want to be an expert in. And, you know, get all the books from the library or whatever. We didn't really have internet back then. Yes, I'm old. So I did. I gathered everything in the areas I wanted to be an expert in. Sleep really started to fascinate me because it so radically improved the quality of my life and my children's lives. I mean, within just 2 weeks, it was 180 difference. My perspective on life, my own well-being, my children's happiness, it was amazing, the results. So I wanted to know everything there was to know about sleep. So I dug in and really started researching sleep, what little there was out there, and it became a passion of mine for the last 20 years. When the opportunity to actually credential myself was presented back in 2011, I jumped all over it like a hungry trout. And that's where my business was born in 2011, and I actually, it became my career. So, but I have to attribute that to Jan Stahl, if you're out there. I named one of my daughters after her too. She had a profound effect in my life, and her giving me permission to sleep and to teach my child to sleep was probably the greatest piece of advice in all of motherdom that I was ever given, because everything great that happened in my family was born from that. Well, what most people don't realize is that if sleep is poor, if the sleep hygiene is poor, we're really only staying in those light active stages of sleep at night. We're not really getting to the deep restorative stages. Every organ in the body has a lymphatic system to clean and clear out waste and toxins and stress that build up, except for the brain. The brain doesn't have a lymphatic system. The only way the brain is able to clear away some of the buildup and the waste and the toxins and the stress is to get into the deeper stages of a sleep cycle, typically stage 3 and stage 4. That doesn't happen if we don't have enough melatonin at sleep onset. If our sleep hygiene is poor, then we really miss those stages. We don't get enough of them. And when we get into those stages, the brain seems to shrink a little bit, and it allows the fluids, spinal fluids and things, to rush through and clean out the brain and remove the toxins and waste that build up. And we're, you know, there's all kinds of interesting research. There's some great TED Talks out there about this that I always post on my Facebook. I'm a big fan of those. But, you know, we're noticing that when we're lacking proper stages of sleep due to poor sleep hygiene, we start to see symptoms of mental health issues. You know, it makes it hard for us to concentrate. We can even start hallucinating. We engage in high-risk behavior. Such as drowsy driving. That's a big thing right now. More accidents are now happening because of being drowsy at the wheel, and it happens from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's the prime time for that. Typically when we're dropping off kids at school and picking them up after work. We need to be really mindful of what sleep deprivation does to us. The symptoms of a child who is sleep deprived by the age of 3, and that's just from fragmented sleep at night, not keeping them up for hours on end, just lightly fragmenting their sleep at night. If they're getting up multiple times in the middle of the night, by the time they're 3, the symptoms of that sleep deprivation are exactly identical to the symptoms of a child at 3 years old who's rightfully diagnosed with ADHD. You cannot tell the symptoms apart. And so I wonder if, you know, a lot of children are being misdiagnosed with this with ADHD and even medicated, when it really is just a sleep hygiene issue. But those are some serious ramifications. And we're really just not setting them up for success in their social behavior, emotionally, familially, within the family. It's just sad. I think that we really don't regard our own sleep, and therefore we don't regard our children's need for sleep. We're in a really difficult place in our culture where that definitely needs to start changing. Common sleep issues. The big ones that I get when moms call me, and they're pretty much at the end of the road by the time they call a sleep consultant. They've tried everything, they've read every book, they've even burned through a couple other sleep consultants. They're really desperate. They are usually having issues with multiple night wakings, sometimes because of reactive co-sleeping just to get through the night and survive the sleep deprivation they're under. They don't know how to get the child out of the bed and sleeping independently, helping a child learn to connect their sleep cycles independently throughout the night. Those are the biggest issues. And parents don't realize that, the habits have to change for both the child and the parent. So it's not about just changing routines and habits and things like that for the child, but the parent naturally finds that they're changing along with it. So it's everybody's habits need to change. And that sleep hygiene is key. People often ask me what sleep hygiene is. It's the medical terminology for syncing your child's sleep with their natural biological rhythms and implementing some specific things within their existing care routines that help to kickstart and elevate melatonin levels, those powerful sleep hormones. And sleep really is more about hormones, and we have to regard those and set them up for success so that when we do go to lay them down for nap time or bedtime, the brain and the body want to do the sleeping. The only thing left to fight it after that is a child's will, or unlearning some old habits and learning some powerful new habits. And so sleep hygiene is always the first thing I look at. Sleep wellness. Let's get those things tightened up first. Let's set your child up for success by making sure that they can actually do what we're asking them to do. And then you can look at some of the behavioral components to changing sleep habits. And that's where sleep training methods come into play. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to teaching a child new habits. Every child is unique and different, and so is the family and the lifestyle of the family, and you want to make sure that you're matching the right method with the child. So I let parents do that because parents are the best expert on their child. They know them better than I do. But as long as we're considering age, temperament, any past failed sleep training attempts in the background that didn't go so well, and the parent's own sleep deprivation and ability to be consistent. Consistency is the most important thing. I don't care what method you choose, as long as you can be consistent with it. Because the fairest, most loving, humane thing that we can do for our child is to provide a simple, clear, consistent message. I would say the sleep environment would be number one. In my 4 pillars of sleep hygiene, I break down for all the families that I work with. This is the foundation of sleep. The environment needs to be cool, needs to be dark, and it needs to be quiet. Basically what nature gave us in the beginning to sleep with, right? Until we invaded the night with the invention of the light bulb and furnaces and heaters and all of that. So if we can keep it similar to what God gave us in the beginning, to sleep under, then that's a great ideal sleep environment. Actually, those 3 components will help kickstart and elevate melatonin levels the minute you walk into that environment. We need it really dark because in between each of our sleep cycles, we're all kind of in an active, awake stage of sleep where sometimes babies' eyes will open, and if their eye gate should happen to catch the slightest little glimmer of light coming through the closed window blinds or a night light on in the room, or sometimes even the indicator light on a baby monitor, it's enough to arouse them all the way awake. So we want to make sure it's really dark in the room so they can cycle from one sleep cycle to the next without arousing. So that's why that's important. Temperatures, I say keep it somewhere between 68 and 71 degrees Fahrenheit. Quiet, sometimes that's not possible, especially in Los Angeles where I live. So we've got to get a little creative, and that's where a white noise machine can be very helpful. But we want to make sure it's actually conducive to sleep and safe for baby's hearing. Sometimes just a good old-fashioned box fan on in the room. Don't let it blow directly on your child, just some ambient noise. Anything that has lullaby music, heartbeat sounds, ocean waves, rain sounds, those things are actually counterproductive to sleep because they have notable, detectable rhythms that will arouse the brain all the way awake in that lighter active stage between sleep cycles. So we want it to be what we call pink noise, just very ambient, like having a fan on in the room. After you turn it on, you don't really hear it anymore. You don't realize it's on. So that's the kind of white noise you want to use. And you want to keep it at least 200 centimeters or 5.5 feet away from your baby's head so that their hearing is protected. And check the decibel levels. Check with your pediatrician what he recommends for your child. You can download a decibel meter app on your smartphone and test it at different distances away from your child's head to see what those are looking like. And then the second pillar of sleep hygiene is knowing your child's true sleep cues. We want to make sure that we're catching the true, what I like to call relaxed state cues, rather than overtired cues. Most parents think that when they see their kid rubbing their eyes, arching their back, squawking, a little irritable, a little cranky, they think, oh boy, it's time to get them down for a nap, or time for bedtime. Those are actually the signs that it's too late. Melatonin has left the building and it ain't coming back. And that's when cortisol and adrenaline levels rise, those wakefulness hormones, and it makes it very difficult for any of us to fall asleep under those conditions. It's not fair to try and sleep train a child whose stress levels are frankly elevated. It's impossible to do. And even if they eventually do crash, they're going to be crashing with very little melatonin in their system, which makes it difficult to get into deeper, more restorative stages of sleep. The sleep will be fragmented all night long, and you'll have extra early morning wake-ups. So I tell parents to look for the relaxed state cues, and that's when your child's motions are slower, they're less vocal, you may see that they're disinterested in their surroundings. The dog that they tried to hitchhike a ride on, earlier, they're like, not interested in that. Their eyelids may get a little heavy. You might see a tiny little yawn come out of them. And they just kind of look like they're spacing out. They're just chill, super chill. And that window's very brief. It's like 10 to 15 minutes, and then it's gone. And if you miss that window, you'll see them catch their second wind, and all of a sudden they're overtired. So ideally, we want to be laying them down for sleep when we see those relaxed state cues, when melatonin is elevated in the system. The third pillar of sleep hygiene is making sure that we have really good, tight pre-sleep routines. They're very important tools if used correctly. They serve two powerful functions. First, they kickstart melatonin production, and they signal to the brain and the body that sleep is about to come. And that's the essence of routine. This is what creates emotional wellness for children. It gives them the ability to self-regulate. Because I don't know about you, but I don't know, especially with my 4 kids, even as teenagers and young adults, nobody really likes having to go to bed. We feel like we're going to miss out on something. They're going to express their preferences. In fact, they may tell you that they think your new sleep rules suck. It's par for the course. But we know that if we've created a really good, solid pre-sleep routine, that the body's going to produce, the body and the brain will start producing the hormones for sleep in spite of that. And that's setting them up for success. It gives them the ability to know what's coming next. Predictable routines. So pre-sleep routines should be the same thing in the same exact order of things every single time, and they should be brief. Because again, they work so well that you kickstart melatonin, you've only got 10 to 15 minutes you need to have them down. So I tell parents about 10 to 15 minutes for naps and about 20 to 30 minutes for a pre-sleep routine for bedtime. And it's a little longer for bedtime because it's great to implement bath time and pajamas into that routine. There's some great scientific benefits to, my secret is candlelit bath. Make it baby spa night. Don't make it splishy, splashy, stimulating playtime with the overhead lights shining in their eyes. Use candles, Play some spa music, make it chill. 5 to 7 minutes in there, all business. Wrap it up the minute, well, first of all, they come into candlelight. That produces melatonin. That's why they have it in spas and expensive restaurants at night. It chills us out the minute we go into a candlelit environment. So there's some scientific benefits for that. We come out of warm bath water, instantly our core body temperatures drop, and they drop fast. When core body temperatures drop, we get a huge spike of melatonin. So right there, you've done a lot for your child in implementing bath time into your very brief pre-sleep routine for bedtime. Then take them into the sleep environment that we talked about, cool, dark, white noise. Leave the door open just enough to the hallway, so you can get some filtered light in from the hallway to finish up your pre-sleep routine. And try to remove whatever sleep crutches you have in place in that pre-sleep routine. You know, especially if you have a baby that is used to having to fall asleep on the breast or on a bottle or being rocked all the way to sleep. Try to just change the order of when those feedings come. Feed to sleep crutches are really strong, hard for children to break. So I tell parents, provide the feedings, the milk component of the child's feeding after sleep, and provide the solid food component of feedings just prior to beginning your 10 to 15 minute pre-sleep routine. And that right there can start to change the habit loop and help them to disassociate. I've got to have a bottle in my mouth to fall asleep or a boob in my mouth to fall asleep. So that can be helpful. The fourth pillar of sleep hygiene is timing. The timing of sleep is far more important to regard than looking at how many hours your child is getting. And to wrap your mind around that concept, look at shift worker syndrome or jet lag syndrome. If you know anybody who does shift work at night, they may get all the hours they need during the daytime after they've been awake all night working, but they still wake up a hot mess. And they have much higher rates of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, drug and alcohol abuse is rampant. They're just not able to get to those deeper restorative stages of sleep because the body is sleeping outside of its natural biological rhythms. Same thing for our children. So we need to make sure that they're going to bed really early. And most parents, when I tell them how old their particular child needs to go to bed according to the age and all of that, their eyeballs get really wide. Yes, that early, and make sure they're getting up within their natural biological wake times, 6 to 7 a.m. for most children. So they also need to stay well rested during the day. So making sure that children have 1 or 2 naps in the daytime to stay well rested so that they're not already overtired by their early bedtime, therefore negatively affecting sleep if you're overtired at that point. I love that question. First of all, babies are not born with their circadian rhythm. They have no ability to produce melatonin on a time basis. They should never, ever, ever be sleep trained until the sleep cycles start looking more adult-like in nature and the physical vitals have been established and attachment has been established with the baby. And that's at the very, very earliest, 4 months properly dated from the child's due date, not their birth date. And when the pediatrician gives the thumbs up that they're completely healthy, weight gain is there, positive breastfeeding behaviors have been established if that's what the mother has chosen to do, and the mother feels like it's time and she's ready. It's never too late. It's never too late. I work with kids as old as 12 years old and who have 0 sleep skills. Parents have just decided to put it off, and it's not impossible. You can still teach somebody to sleep. So I like to tell parents when they're ready too. Mom's got to be fully invested and really ready for this. But typically 4 months is the very, very earliest that you'll see sleep researchers recommend. I like to work with babies at about age 6 months and up, mainly because I think moms just feel more ready at that time. Some moms feel ready earlier. I get moms that call me at like 8 weeks old, I'm so ready to get some sleep. And I'm like, my recommendation is just do whatever you got to do to survive those early months. Bond with your child, meet their needs on demand. There is no way to spoil a newborn. There is no way to spoil them. I tell them to break every rule. Do everything, baby wear, do it all, because we want a strong foundation of attachment from which to teach. That foundation of attachment provides a sense of security and trust and overall emotional well-being, so that when you do enter the stage, in the second stage of infancy, where it's time to teach your child a skill that they're ready for, then you know that you have already established that trust there. That's the perfect foundation from which to start teaching. So that would be my recommendation. So when parents get past the initial stage of having to create new habits and put new habits into place, but not only for their children, but it naturally happens for them as well, and they start to see the benefits of sleep, everybody's starting to become more well-rested. The relationships are the first things that improve between every member in the family. And that alone is where they start celebrating. They themselves start getting better sleep, the parents, and they start to really, start to think more creatively, how they want to engage with their children. They stop being Band-Aid parents, kind of dealing with the situation at hand in the moment, and think more broadly and in a more visionary sense, taking advantage of those wonderful teachable moments and thinking of them in a big picture way with bigger solutions and bigger things to teach that will impact their child on a greater level. And that's something that really surprises parents. They start thinking about this amazing eternal purpose of parenting in a whole different way when they're not overtired and anxious and frustrated and impatient, and that creative time that you get when you're well rested, and you actually start missing your children because they're sleeping so much. They start really enjoying the art of parenthood, and they just can't believe that they never thought it could ever be that way for them when we start working together. That's one of my favorite things to hear, that they're telling me that they enjoy being a parent for the first time or again or whatever it is, and that surprises them more than anything. Hi, I'm Jenny June. I'm a certified child and family sleep consultant and a nationally certified lactation counselor and a pre- and postnatal stress management coach. You can find me and more information about my work on jennijune.com. Jenni, June as in the month, jennijune.com. My hope for you is that you start to see sleep from a different perspective, as a health and safety issue, just as you would car seat safety for your child or nutrition. It's very important for their overall emotional, social, and physical well-being. And I hope I'm able to give you some tips that will help encourage you to move forward to provide sleep wellness for you and your family. What one thing are you going to do this week to help improve your sleep and your children's sleep?